Well, we're back and we're drinking. I've got water. Andy's got wine. And we're here with another episode of Music That Matters on Different Strings, a guitar adjacent podcast. I am your host. I am the much less angry Wes. And I'm here with my friend Andy. Andy, please say hello and tell everybody your anger level right now on a 1 to 10 scale.
Probably about a two, maybe.
Okay, good. Good. Fantastic. Now, I chose the Music That Matters album for this week, and it is, as the kids say, a banger. Now, I will not, I'm gonna preface this by saying not every song slaps, and I'm
Wah.
gonna tell you about that. But the album is from Megadeth, one of the big four in thrash metal, and it is, of course, their 1990 magnum opus entitled Rust in Peace.
But
Dun,
awesome.
dun. Uh,
Cool.
Possibly, absolutely one of the top five metal albums in history.
Oh man, that's saying a lot. There's a lot of good metal
Yeah,
records out there, my friend.
there are, and this is one of the top five from my seat. It was Rust in Peace was Megadeth's fourth album. The band recorded its first two albums with one lineup. That was Dave Mustaine, guitar and vocals, David Ellefson on bass, Chris Poland on guitar, and a guy called Gar Samuelson on drums. Now, between the second and third album, they Dave found out that apparently that Chris Poland was pawning the band's gear to support his drug habit, so he got fired. Gar Samuelson was also fired. So far, so good. So what? The third album had Jeff Young on guitar and Chuck Baylor on drums. And Chuck Baylor, interesting tidbit, was Gar Samuelson's drum tech.
Oh,
Yeah, so he just stepped right in. And So Far So Good was a good album. It was okay, but other than In My Darkest Hour, it's not a great album. There's a song on it called In My Darkest Hour. That's a song that's great, right?
mhm.
So for the band's fourth album, Dave really needed to do something epic. I'm sure he was feeling the pressure. He was concerned about getting dropped. Capitol Records was their record label. It was their second label, and they'd already done two albums for that. And so they really had to do something big. Now, Dave was dissatisfied with the mixing of So Far So Good So What. He blamed that for the album's poor performance, but I honestly think the songs just weren't that great and the playing wasn't that great, and the band lacked the chemistry that they'd built up in the first two albums of having that consistent lineup. um and of course, both Chris and Gar got fired for really good reasons. You can't keep somebody with a drug habit like that in the band for very long. But I think Dave was under so much pressure to produce that he rushed to replace them. He just grabbed people that were handy,
Hmm.
right? He hired the drum tech to play drums, and he just grabbed a guy that he knew to play guitar. When that didn't work out, he actually hired that dude's guitar teacher. So that's not a real solid way. I mean, I've heard worse, but you know, and with all that going on, how do you write songs?
Yeah.
Right? You need a stable environment. And at that point, Dave was still very much in band mode. Even though he was the band leader, Megadeth was still a band at that time. Now it's become kind of more like Dave and whoever he hasn't pissed off that will still play with him, or
Hmm.
whoever hasn't been accused of trying to have sex with a minor and gotten fired, or this, that, and the other, right? He hasn't had a consistent lineup since this era that started with Rust in Peace.
Yeah.
So the fired drummer's drum tech was Nick Menza, and he became the new drummer. It's a little bit of a red flag, maybe, but Nick Menza was a monstrously talented drummer. He's since passed away, unfortunately, and he proved it. And he was if you see interviews with Nick, he is just a happy dude that loves playing guitar. I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
that loves playing drums. And that came through everything that he did. He was so much fun to watch play. Now, at the time, Dave was thinking about rehiring Chris Poland. I assume Chris had gotten cleaned up by that time. But according to Chris, his management didn't like the idea. And Dave got word that Marty Friedman was looking for a band. Now, the way he got that word was that Marty had had some disastrous auditions in Los Angeles. Turns out Marty auditioned for Ozzy.
Wow, that could have been very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And he said it was probably the worst audition he'd ever been on in his entire life because he walked in, he knew the songs cold, he played them, the band sounded great, and he realized that none of these guys were ever going to want to hang out with him. And vice versa. You know, just not the kind of people that were going to gel together. But while he was in Los Angeles, Marty had given Dave a copy of Dragon's Kiss, which was Marty's first solo album. Dave really dug it. He listened to guitar players for a long time. Another person that kind of passed through his orbit was Dimebag Darrell. That would have been interesting as well. But he kept coming back to this album, Dragon's Kiss, and he was like, you know what? I'm going to call up Marty. Marty came in. I've seen video of the audition, and you can see the looks on the guys' faces as they're playing with Marty. And they're palling around, they're joking around, they're having a good time. And it felt a lot like Destiny. So we didn't know it at the time, of course, but this lineup, Dave, David, Marty, and Nick, would be the most stable lineup Megadeth ever had.
Yep.
And Rust in Peace was the first album that they recorded. They worked with a producer called Mike Klink, who, if you're a big fan of the Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction album, you may have heard of Mike Klink. But Dave says that Mike was busy with Guns N' Roses on their follow-up, the Use Your Illusion albums. And so Dave had to end up doing most of the production himself. Now, that's according to Dave. So I think Dave sometimes is a little self-promoting in a way that might need to be fact-checked. But but that's the situation, right? So and you know, as a lot of times when we talk about these music that matters albums, um as I would say all killer no filler, but you've taught me to say that the album slaps and is full of bangers. These are
Mhm.
all positive things. And I do think that Rust in Peace has a couple of clunkers on it. A couple. Um, Poison Was the Cure, not a terrible song, but not a great song either. Take No Prisoners, not a bad song. You put it on any other Megadeth album and it stands up. But on this album, it's a little bit weak compared to the rest of the material,
Mhm.
right? Because the songs that prop this album up and make it so listenable and so repeatably listenable are all of the other songs, like literally all of the other songs.
Right.
We start with the one song that is two songs put together, Holy Wars, The Punishment Due. And in this song title, the word punish does a lot of heavy lifting because not only is the second half of the song an ode to Marvel's anti-hero known as the Punisher, but the riffs in this song are absolutely punishing. It kicks off and it is just brutally fast
Yeah.
and relentless. And it's so hard to play and it's so worth it. I actually use the opening riff as a finger warm-up exercise.
Uh-huh.
And I play it faster and faster and faster until I can play it almost as fast as Megadeth plays it. Now, So you come in with that epic two-part song, and then Hangar 18, which is a little bit of a UFO kind of conspiracy theory thing. And for the first time in, for what I feel is the first time in the history of Megadeth, you can see why Dave wanted to have two guitar players, because you take one guitar out of that song and it doesn't sound right, and it shows why Marty was the perfect person for this band at that time. They trade leads, although Dave is no slouch as a lead guitar player. Let me get that right out. Dave absolutely does not suck, but Marty is so good and so musical and so effortless that sometimes when you listen to the album, it's pretty easy to pick out Dave's solos.
Yeah, I remember an interview. This is how long this is what this album came out when? 90?
1990.
Yeah. Think of how long ago that was. And I remember this line from an interview. That should tell you how much this line left a mark on me. The interview with Dave was, I'm the sledgehammer, Marty's the precision instrument.
There you go. That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah,
Because Dave is, remember, Dave Mustaine was the lead guitar player in Metallica,
that's right.
so he is absolutely no slouch on lead guitar.
No.
But putting him in a band with Marty Friedman is like putting the two of us together, right? You're super fluid and musical, and I play a guitar like it owes me money.
Stop.
So
There is no way you don't hear the difference between Marty and Dave on this record. That's
right.
just, I
And
mean, hey, look, Chris
Dave,
Poland was
why?
no slouch either.
No,
Chris,
no, no, no.
yeah, so but and Chris Poland also had a much more fluid melodic style than Dave did, but Chris matched Dave more than Marty did. Marty is from a tone perspective, from a just his musical theory background. It's another world in Marty, with Marty. So, but yet he
Yeah.
managed to find a home on this first record. It's not like you hear Marty and go, he's a fish out of water. He
No.
really finds his
It's
here.
so seamless. Yeah. Right. So then you close out side one with a song called Five Magics, which is weird lyrics but amazing music. And then you flip the tape over because I had this on cassette.
Mhm.
And then you got to get past Poison Was the Cure, not my favorite song. You rock out to a song called Lucretia, and then you have, if for no other reason, if you hate Megadeth, and you should not, by the way, you buy this album for the song Tornado of Souls. So let's talk about Tornado of Souls for a minute. If you've never heard Marty Friedman and you wonder why anybody talks about him, go to YouTube and listen to this song right now
Mhm.
and watch one of the 9,000 videos of people dissecting the guitar solo from Tornado of Souls. There is a section in it that literally nobody else has ever played right, because nobody knows what Marty was doing. He surpassed human capabilities for a brief moment during this guitar solo, and nobody has been able to replicate it, right? It is exactly, the solo from this song is exactly the thing that makes people like you and I seriously consider quitting playing guitar on the spot when we see it.
It's when people
It's that
say,
good.
I know, this is why when people say to me at a show, oh man, that solo that you did, you're so good. And I'm like, listen,
If you think that was good, let me tell you about something.
go home and listen to Tornado of Souls and then come back and tell. I know, look, there's degrees, but like, yeah, this is ridiculous. This is a level of ridiculousness. Come on. And again, it's
And
so melodic and so good.
yeah, and that's the thing. There is not a wasted note or
Not one.
phrase in the entire thing. And I counted it out. Andy, are you ready for this?
No, I
It
don't.
is a it is a 48 bar guitar solo that takes 2 minutes to unwind. 2 minutes.
Um,
Not to mention, but wait, there's more. The solo is preceded by an absolutely crushing breakdown that
mhm.
will peel paint from your neighbors' houses because, frankly, when you listen to Tornado of Souls, so should your neighbors,
It's, hey, look,
right? If
people
you
say
if
Dave
you
is an egomaniac, and he gave Marty Friedman 48 bars in 2 minutes.
48 bars,
That's
40,
very long.
nobody outside of a prog band has a 48 bar solo.
Mhm.
I'm telling you. If you can listen to Tornado of Souls and not bang your head before slack dropping your jaw to the floor, well, you shouldn't even be listening to music.
No,
Period.
it's
Okay. Now,
um,
from that point on the album, all you can really do is recover. And Dave, when he sequenced the album, wisely dropped the pace down. We've got a little bass and vocals cool down song called Dawn Patrol, which is creepy and weird, dystopian. And then the album closes with another crushingly brutal track called Rust in Peace, Polaris. Now, he's not talking about Polaris, the Canadian company that makes wave skippers, snowmobiles, and side by sides. He's talking about Polaris missiles. And this song, the last song on the album, opens with the kind of drum intro that if you had been standing in the big room in the studio when they recorded it, you would now be sterile, right?
yeah,
So this is the album, right? And I mean, let's be honest, you and me, Andy, we're in a safe space here, right?
yeah. I think we are.
Okay. Nobody listens to Megadeth for Dave Mustaine's vocals.
No,
No. You listen to Megadeth for punishing riffs, amazing guitar solos, and drums, 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 drums. Plus, maybe the bass intro to Peace Sells, but who's buying? That's why we listen to Megadeth. And this album is why everybody should be listening to Megadeth, especially because this lineup recorded 3 more albums.
this
And
lineup alone, right?
this lineup right now, the following albums got a little more slickly produced, a little more commercial, a little more accessible.
You know why?
Yeah, because Dave decided he liked making money.
Well, but to their credit, the Black Album came out.
Yeah, that's right. Megadeth or Metallica's Black Album came out, and heavy metal went mainstream, and
That's
Dave
right.
wanted a piece of that.
That's right. They what well as wanted a piece of, or as it was put, um, that Metallica opened the door for
Yeah,
us. Yeah. So that's that's allegedly what happened. And
yeah,
but also, you know, Marty wanted it, according to other people, Marty wanted the band to start sounding more commercial because he saw the potential, and Dave was getting, he saw it for a minute and then he decided enough was enough and he wanted to get heavier again.
yeah,
So first Nick left and then Marty left, but it was because
yeah. They
they felt like there was more potential in that market, and that's not what Dave wanted.
yeah, and I mean, but for so their album called Cryptic Writings is kind of what started the conflict between Dave and Marty as far as direction goes. Risk certainly was the end of that. Risk is not a good album. Um, some
Because
great playing on it.
they were miserable at this point. They hated each other.
Yeah. Well, and they'd all cut their hair, so their strength was gone. Um, but
Did that?
for Rust in Peace and the two albums after it, Megadeth could do no wrong. They were the kings of the thrash metal world with that little hiccup of the Black Album coming out, right? But their reputation, Megadeth's reputation as a tremendous contributor to metal music, is built on the backs of the three albums that they recorded, four albums they recorded with Marty and Nick.
Yeah.
And I think this era of Megadeth is better than anything else that was coming out at the time, including the Black Album, which I liked.
Yeah. Um,
But
this,
there's a reason I picked this album and not that one.
and what is that?
It's Rust in Peace.
That's,
That's it, man.
that's the reason. Um, so I'm thinking back to, this is a safe space, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was not a Megadeth fan when this album came out.
I'd heard Peace Cells and pretty much nothing else. I didn't have any of their albums. I wasn't interested. I couldn't
Mhm.
stand Dave's vocals.
That was a
I
big
didn't
reason.
I didn't care for Chris's lead playing. Amazing player, but he was just a little too jazzy prog for my taste.
It didn't fit where Marty did, like
Yeah.
Marty, yeah. So
And I heard one of the bands I was working for at the time, they had this album in the car and were playing it at high volume. And I was stunned that it was Megadeth because it didn't sound like any of the Megadeth I'd heard before.
yeah, so was not a Megadeth fan, and I had only heard Marty briefly in the work that he did with Jason Becker.
That was Cacophony, right?
That was Cacophony, right? And wasn't even a huge fan of that because
No,
these were the this was the
it's a little wanky.
yeah, the speed metal days where it was just about finding the fast guitar player. I'm not saying they weren't good guitar players, but the songs didn't grab me. And, Megadeth songs didn't really grab me either. And I couldn't get past Dave's vocals. And then this happened. And I can't believe this is only their fourth record. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
so when I saw that, I'm like, really? They did three records and this came out? This is kind of early in their career. And I never realized that it was the most solid lineup, but that makes total sense because to me, this
Mhm.
is the Megadeth lineup. The albums they did with Marty to me is Megadeth's, golden era.
Yeah.
Um, and this album in particular, I think the album after this is even better. I agree with you, but
Yeah, I agree.
this is the one that started that. And you really hear it. They just gel so amazing. And yeah, so I'd like to say this was a big influence on my playing, but no, I enjoyed it. But there is no Marty in my play. He's otherworldly. Um, and but super enjoyable. I love listening to the running joke is when we come up with an album, it's we like it so much we don't even have to listen to it, but we're going to. Um,
Yeah.
I
And I
listen,
listened to it four times since I told you I was picking this album.
yeah, I listened to it a couple of times too, and I'm so glad that you picked it. It's such a great record, especially because like my Metallica days are like I don't appreciate Metallica like I used to.
Yeah.
So now that I don't listen to that anymore, it leaves space for like other thrash, and this is just such a great record. So I'm really glad you picked it. Hugely influential record. Riffs are crushing, great production. Still pre-Pro Tools, which is weird that they recorded this album before they were using Pro Tools.
Yeah,
Um,
1990 would have been, yeah, this was probably done to tape.
yeah. Super cool record. Really enjoyed it. One of the heaviest. Thank you very much. And yeah, good job.
Yeah. I mean, and I agreed that this album didn't affect my playing, but it did affect my songwriting a little bit
Mhm.
in that I became much less hesitant to add heavier parts to my songs when I was presenting them to my band. And I would say that embracing this album is what led me directly to playing in a full-on metal band.
Mhm.
Right. So this album came out in 1990, 1993. I joined a full-on hard metal band. And I took a lot of inspiration from this album, Countdown to Extinction, and Euthanasia in my songwriting for that band. And I've continued to, I mean, there's a, on my upcoming album, there is a song on it that's actually a little funky. It's a little kind of a funk surf tune, but it absolutely has a Megadeth inspired breakdown in it.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. And now that I'm thinking about it, there's a couple other Megadeth inspired breakdowns in the songs on this upcoming album. And of
You're
course,
full, you're full of
you
surprises.
yeah, but you'll have to be familiar with Megadeth to hear them. Like you'll hear them, but most people will not get that influence, you know.
Okay.
But it a lot of it comes from, because that's one of the great things. I think Dave knows he's not a great singer. I don't know if he's particularly self-conscious about it, but I think he knows he's not an amazing singer, even though he worked really hard on it. His singing improved in this era. I mean, with Euthanasia, uh, sorry, Countdown to Extinction and Euthanasia, his vocals actually got better. Now, I don't know if that's a product of him focusing on improving or just better production. But uh there's some improvement there. So I think one of the things that Dave liked to do was lean on the music. And if they can rock out and bang their heads while they're grooving, then that's just as good as anything else.
Yeah.
So
Well,
all right,
good.
I'm spent. I'm
All right. Good pick.
out
Different
of
Strings
water.
Podcast at gmail.com. Different Strings wherever you listen to podcasts. And on YouTube, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment. Tell us what you think of Megadeth's Rust in Peace or any Megadeth record for that matter, for the love of God.
Yeah.
Just tell us something. And yeah, Wes, as always, it was fun.
Yes, I look forward to your next pick.
Oh, that's right. Of course, with you picking, I picked the next one. All right. Well, how do I outdo this one? Well, I just can't outdo it. I'm going to have to come up with something.
It's Yeah, it's not a competition, my friend.
That's what people say when they want to lose.
Hey, I'll take second place all day long if second place is Rust in Peace.
Exactly. All right. Have a great night.
All right, bye.
Bye.